Okay, this is a strategic map. Here is France. I just Googled it, along with the Waterloo and French and Prussian and Allied orders of battle for the last war. Let us begin with the French positions. Napoleon and the Guard are here, and he has formed the Army du Nord with 1st Corps, 2nd Corps, 3rd Corps, 4th Corps, 4 cavalry corps, which I've reduced to 2 cavalry corps, just because there weren't that many men in them. And Napoleon and the Guard. He also has Field Marshals Ney and Grouchy in the Army of the North. Over here, we have Rapp's Corps. He is basically monitoring the Austrians that are forming just across the border here. And he's also monitoring the Swiss border. And in the south, we have Suchet monitoring the Italian-Austrian border, also monitoring the southern French coast, and monitoring the Spanish border. So that is 4 corps here, plus the cavalry, plus the guard. Corps number 5, corps number 6, corps number 7 is in Paris, and corps number 8, they're not necessarily numbered that number for each corps, is putting down a royalist uprising in this part of France. So they have to roll a 6 every week to be finished with that and be liberated for duty. In Paris, Napoleon also has 65,000 men under training, which they crank out 5,000 men a week. Okay, so let's look at the Allied position. The Spanish are mustering 4 corps. They get a roll each week. And as of week 2, they have mustered 0 out of 4 corps. The British Navy is in the south and bringing up a corps, supposedly to coordinate with the Spanish and invade France. They get a roll every week. It gets easier. But when they arrive, they don't necessarily have to land. They may want to wait for the Spanish troops to work together. In northern Italy, we have the Austro-Sardinian army, and they have managed to form 1 out of 3 corps that they're mobilizing. In Switzerland, there are 2 small corps which are unlikely to attack until the Austrians do something, and even when the Austrians do something, they're unlikely to attack because they're Swiss. All right, and here is the big Austrian force forming under Schwarzenberg. He's forming 7 large corps, but so far he has been able to form 0 out of the 7 large corps. Two Russian columns have been coming down from Russia. One is here, one is here, each with 90,000 men, headed straight to Paris. There is a Prussian corps here, which is not under the command of Blücher, and it's basically there just to monitor the French border and make sure nobody sneaks up into Russia. Here is Blücher with 4 corps, and here is Wellington with some 4 corps and some cavalry, and their objective is to meet in Brussels and then head south and attack Paris. Fortunately for Napoleon, not only are the Allies slower to move, but there's very little communication and coordination between the Allied forces. So on week 2, this is where we stand, the 2nd week of June, the Russians have made it this far. On week 2, Blucher moves to Brussels, and Wellington moves to join Blucher in Brussels. Seeing that this is the first major threat, Napoleon moves the Army du Nord, which is 4 corps, 2 cavalry corps, the Guard, and Grouchy and Ney as field marshals towards Brussels. So the first combat will be in week 2 of June in the area around Brussels. So that's the strategic situation on the second week of June, 1815. And second week of June, 1815. And now let us take it to the grand tactical area around Brussels. Okay, this is the grand tactical situation around Brussels. Each one of these hexes represents a mile. Let's look at the French position first. As they did historically, the French have divided into a left wing and the right wing. The left wing entered here and is moving towards Brussels, and it's now here. The situation is 3 p.m. on day 1 of the second week of June. The left wing consists of 1st Corps, 2nd Corps, 1st Cavalry Corps, and has Field Marshal Ney in it. The right wing came up here and it's moving north on this road, and are currently here at 3 p.m. With 3rd Corps and the 2nd Cavalry Corps here with Grouchy, followed by 4th Corps, and in the rear is the Guard with Napoleon. Their supply depot has been left down here. And let us look at the Allied position. 2 Prussian corps entered on this road, came to this crossroad, and turned north on their way to Brussels. 2 Prussian corps with Blucher and a supply depot entered this road and are moving directly towards Brussels. 1 English corps, I believe with Wellington, started in Brussels. Another corps entered here and is already at Brussels. I believe the 1st Corps started here and has come along this road and is now turned towards Brussels. The 2nd Corps arrived late and they've only made it this far on their way to Brussels. It is now 3 p.m. The French can move 3 miles an hour and the Allies can move 2 miles an hour. Messengers can move 8 miles an hour. If you have cavalry, you can detect enemy 5 hexes away along roads, and artillery fire can be heard 5 hexes away in any direction. These hexes with lots of little black squares are not city hexes. They're all basically clear terrain, so it doesn't matter if you're fighting in a white hex or a city hex, it's basically open terrain. However, this is Brussels, and the French objective is to capture it, because if they capture it, the Netherlands surrender, they install a government favorable to France, whatever troops are left become a defense force, the government kicks out the Prussians and the British, who will have to leave the Netherlands, and Napoleon will have no further threat from the Netherlands, but it remains to be seen how many Prussians and English survive, and where they go. The English would probably have to go this way to the sea and get picked up by a fleet. There's 1 fleet in London. There's that other fleet just south of the French coastline. So these three French corps, the right wing, have caught up to two Prussian corps, and there will be a fight here. Our first fight will be here, starting at 3 p.m. Turns are 15 minutes. This is turning out to be very much like the Battle of Ligny, so we'll call it the Battle of Ligny. On the left wing, the leading elements under Ney have 5 hexes scouted, identified, seen the English supply depot, but they are not aware of this corps, and they are not aware of this corps. So it'll be very interesting what Ney does. Will he pursue the English, even though they're very, very close to lots of corps in Brussels, or will he just kind of shadow them? And at some point, this corps is probably going to meet the left wing. And so in this area, we're getting ready to have a battle in an hour or two that is going to be very much like Quatre Bras. So whatever happens here, we'll call Quatre Bras, and this battle we'll call Ligny. And information is slow to get around. Like I said, messengers can move 8 miles per hour, but only on the hourly movement. So there's a lot of lack of knowledge on all the various groups, and it'll be very interesting what happens today, and more interesting what orders are issued to these 2 British corps and these 2 Prussian corps for day 2. It's going to get very interesting because every corps has to issue orders at the beginning of the day, and that will force their movement unless they can recon or make contact with an enemy, and then they can react. So, off to the Battle of Ligny, the French with the Guard against 2 Prussian corps, and probably the next post will be what happens on the left wing with what's going on here. Now we know the posts are very boring if you're just watching us play for 40 minutes or an hour and a half. So we are just going to show you the setup of the battle and then take a quick shot of the battle as it progresses, maybe every 2, 3, 4 turns, whatever seems important. So you won't have to watch us play for 40, 60 minutes. You'll just see the development of the battle in faster time. So let's take it to the table.